Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast.
Great to be here.
Our focus today is Tilray Brands' upcoming earnings to watch. We're really going to jump straight into the data, giving you a complete look at the numbers, what the market's expecting, and the crucial risks and catalysts ahead of their report. And hey, if you find this analysis valuable, please do hit that like button, subscribe, maybe leave a comment below. And actually, if there's a specific company you want us to look into next time, definitely drop that name in the comments too.
Absolutely. So we are specifically dissecting the fiscal Q1 2026 report for Tilray Brands. That's the quarter that ended August 31st, 2025. The report itself is expected around October 8th after the market closes, U.S. Eastern Time. And what we've done is synthesize the analyst consensus, looked at historical volatility, recent catalysts, really trying to give you the full picture of where Tilray stands right now.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Let's start right at the beginning then with those consensus numbers. When we look at what the street's modeling for Tilray this quarter, what's the baseline? What are they expecting for revenue and earnings?
Right. So the current consensus revenue projection is $178.0 million. And the immediate story there is, well, contraction. That number represents an expected decline of about 6% year over year.
Okay, a 6% drop year over year. And on the bottom line?
On the bottom line, the consensus is looking for a GAAP EPS loss of 10 cents per share. So
right, not lower than GAAP EPS loss. And just quickly for everyone listening, GAAP means generally accepted accounting principles. It's kind of the standard unadjusted figure. Now, that revenue decline, obviously not great, but what's maybe more telling is the momentum, right? How have these estimates been moving recently?
Yeah, that's a key point. They haven't been stable at all. The direction has been distinctly cautious. Over just the past month, we've seen some pretty substantial downward revisions. Revenue estimates, they're down about $5.5 million.
Wow.
And the EPS estimates have slipped lower by a penny, too.
So analysts are getting less confident, even hitting these already maybe lower targets?
That's typically what it signals, yes. It suggests less confidence that the company can navigate the current market challenges.
Okay. And connecting that to what the company itself is saying.
Yeah.
Tilray's fighting headwinds in the sector, but also trying to execute internally. Did management give us any specific guideposts last quarter?
They were pretty conservative, actually. They avoided giving explicit full-year revenue or overall EPS guidance, which tells you something. But they did emphasize their strategy, highlighting continued efforts to drive cannabis beverage and international growth. And crucially, they gave us one measurable target to watch, aiming for an adjusted gross margin above 28% for the cannabis segment specifically.
That margin target. Okay, that sounds critical. Especially given Tilray's history, earnings reports can really move this stock. What does history and maybe current market positioning suggest about volatility this time?
History definitely suggests you should, brace for impact. The typical next-day price move after earnings is usually somewhere between plus or minus 8% and 12%. We saw that tested, remember, when the stock jumped 13% after their Q3 25 EPS beat? That was just a penny beat, by the way.
Right.
But the setup now looks much more dramatic. The implied volatility, the IV, and the front-week options, it's currently sky high. We're talking 129%.
129% IV. That's huge. What does that actually mean in terms of an expected move?
Yeah, mathematically, it translates to an expected move of about plus or minus 15.5% just for this earnings cycle.
Okay, so plus or minus 15.5%. The options market is basically pricing in a massive move one way or the other.
Exactly. They aren't expecting a small drift. They're anticipating either a big surge or a steep drop. It confirms that this margin target and the overall results are seen as really critical swing factors.
All right, so give that big expected swing. Let's circle back to that 28% gross margin target you mentioned. Why is that metric, especially in the cannabis segment, sort of the line in the sand?
It's because gross margin is really the clearest sign of operational efficiency and, maybe more importantly, pricing power. Especially in a market like Canadian cannabis, which is, let's face it, highly commoditized. They're under intense pressure, from competitors, from government pricing rules. And context here is important. In Q4 of fiscal 25, their consolidated gross margin actually fell to 26.5%. That was down from 28.1% the year before.
Okay, wait. So they posted 26.5% last quarter. And Q1, the summer quarter, that's usually seasonally weaker for cannabis sales, right?
That's really true, yes.
So targeting an adjusted gross margin above 28% for cannabis. Isn't that setting a really high bar? Almost seems risky, like setting up for a potential miss.
That's precisely the skepticism you're seeing reflected in those recent analyst downgrades we talked about. Hitting 28%, it requires sharp cost control, better purchasing, maybe shifting the product mix favorably, and all that while the sector's facing, flat consumer demand.
So
If they miss, it confirms the narrative that margins are still under pressure. But if they hit it or beat it, that signals their restructuring efforts might actually be working faster than people think. It's a huge operational hurdle.
But it's not all about cannabis, right? You mentioned their diversification.
Correct. We have to remember the segment contrast. This is where diversification, in theory, helps. While that core cannabis segment was down 9% year over year last time, their beverage alcohol sales were up a pretty remarkable 14% year over year.
14% growth in beverages. Okay.
So we really need to see that beverage and wellness strength continue this quarter. It needs to provide a counterweight to that expected seasonal softness in cannabis.
Got it. Okay, let's pivot a bit to the qualitative stuff. What big news or internal catalysts happened during the quarter ending in August that might influence how investors react to these numbers?
Well, internally, there were a couple of positive developments. First, they finally finalized that litigation settlement involving Hexo and MediPharm.
Right, cleaning up legacy issues.
Exactly. Removing that legal overhang is generally seen as positive, lets them focus resources elsewhere. Second, they kept pushing on diversification. They announced a new CBD product line expansion and launched some branded beverages back in July. That feeds that 14% growth engine we just discussed.
Okay, so some internal positives. But what about the bigger picture, the macro environment?
Yeah, the macro picture remains frustratingly stagnant, frankly. That highly anticipated U.S. cannabis rescheduling, still facing delays, potential catalysts keep getting pushed out. And in their home market, Canada, consumer demand is still pretty flat, which means any organic growth really has to come from stealing market share, not just riding a growing market.
That lack of macro tailwind definitely helps explain why the stock was trending down so heavily, right? Sliding, what was it, 18% in the 3 weeks before this analysis?
Yeah, exactly. And that negative sentiment gets amplified by another factor, short interest.
Ah, yes, the shorts. What's the situation there?
It's high, currently sitting at 18.6% of the free float. That's a significant chunk of shares betting against the company. And what's also key is the days to cover ratio. It's currently 3.9.
Meaning it would take almost 4 days of average trading volume for all those shorts to buy back their shares?
Precisely. And in practical terms, that high number creates some serious potential for a short squeeze if the earnings report surprises, even modestly, to the upside. A lot of fuel there.
Okay, this high short interest, the negative analyst sentiment, it brings us to what seems like a really interesting contradiction we found. You've got analysts cutting targets like Jefferies going from $2.50 down to $2. But then you have the CEO, Irwin Simon, making a pretty significant insider purchase.
Yeah, that's the fascinating part. He bought 165,000 shares at $0.61 per share.
So what does that clash of signals tell the market? Analysts are bearish, the CEO's buying.
Well, it's a powerful psychological factor, isn't it? The analyst downgrades. They're based on modeling, right? Looking at the operational challenges, the difficulty of hitting that 28% margin. Makes sense. But the CEO putting, over $100,000 of his own money on the line at 61 cents, while consensus price targets are still way up over $2, that signals some profound internal confidence.
So for investors watching, that insider buy acts as a countersignal.
A very strong one. It suggests management believes the stock is fundamentally mispriced right now, maybe due to these short-term sector issues that analysts are focusing on.
Interesting dynamic. Okay, beyond the margin and the CEO buying, are there other, maybe more speculative wildcards that could influence that big plus or minus 15.5% expected move?
Oh, absolutely. You always have to factor in speculation, especially in this sector. There are constant rumors about strategic M&A, right? Mergers and acquisitions, particularly around the value of their beverage and wellness segments. Any real news on that front could be huge.
Right, and rescheduling. Still a wild card.
Still a wild card. Delayed, yes, but any positive news out of Washington could instantly spark sector-wide rallies, Tilray included. And finally, just circling back to the shorts given that 18.6% short interest, a simple positive earnings surprise, forcing shorts to cover, that remains a very real possibility for a sharp upward move.
Okay, let's try to pull all this together. We've got the skepticism, the high volatility priced in, the management confidence signal. Can we map out maybe 3 likely scenarios for the stock after earnings using that analyst revenue range: high, $185 million, low, $170.5 million.
Yeah, we've modeled these based on how the market might react, especially focusing on that key margin metric. So our base case scenario, we're giving that about a 60% probability.
Okay, 60%. What does that look like?
That basically means hitting consensus. Revenue around $178 million, EPS loss of 6/10. Crucially, the margin probably lands somewhere in the 26% to 27% range, missing the target but not collapsing. The resulting price move, probably within that typical historical range we mentioned, maybe plus or minus 10% to 13%. The market kind of digests it, acknowledges the challenges, waits for more data next quarter.
60% base case. Feels maybe a touch optimistic given the recent stock slide and estimate cuts. What would trigger the lower probability bear case?
Right, the bear case. We've assigned that a 25% probability. This one's driven purely by fundamental failure. This scenario means revenue comes in near the low end, maybe $170 million, and the EPS loss widens to, say, 212 pence. The key here would be seeing deeper than expected contraction in cannabis, maybe down 11% or 12%, and critically, no margin improvement, stuck below 26%.
And the reaction.
If that happens, we'd expect a pretty steep negative reaction, likely down 16% to 24%.
Ouch. Okay, so that margin really is the guardrail against a major sell-off. What about the upside? What does the bull case require?
The bull case, we see that as having about a 15% probability. This needs revenue near the high end, say $185 million, and a better EPS number, maybe 0.8 loss. But what the market would really need to see is confirmation that the diversification strategy is truly paying off big time. Meaning, two things. Beverage growth accelerating, maybe hitting 18% plus year over year, and most importantly, the cannabis segment actually hitting or even exceeding that target 28% adjusted gross margin.
If they pull that.
If they pull that operational win off, yeah, we'd likely see a significant positive reaction, pushing the stock up maybe 17% to 22%, potentially triggering that short squeeze too.
That framework definitely helps put things in perspective. So summing up the overall leaning, even with the CEO buying, where does the balance of evidence land right now? Neutral.
Bearish. I'd say the balance currently lands neutral to slightly bearish. Look, management confidence is noted. It's important. But the reality of the declining consensus, the real difficulty of hitting that 28% margin target in this environment, and that huge short interest, it does create significant skepticism. The market needs to see proof of profitable growth, not just diversification for diversification's sake.
Okay, so for you, the listener, watching this report come out, what are the absolute key numbers to look for first?
Two things jump out immediately. First, the reported gross margin. Did they manage the operational turnaround? Did they hit that 28% cannabis target? That's number one. And second, the exact beverage segment revenue growth rate. Is that diversification engine still accelerating or is it slowing down? Those two metrics will likely be the primary drivers of the stock price reaction.
That really crystallizes the stakes. So Tilray Brands is battling these sector headwinds, leaning on diversification, showing management confidence through that insider buy, but all against this backdrop of negative revisions and a market braced for a big swing.
Exactly. And just one final thought, connecting this Q1 result to the bigger picture. Remember, the story doesn't actually end on earnings day. Keep an eye on some non-fundamental things coming up later this year. We've got Q4 ETF rebalancing, seasonal retail updates coming in November, December.
Things like index fund adjustments and holiday sales trends.
Precisely. Those kinds of events, index fund flows, broader demand signals, they can act as wildcards. They can shape sentiment for the stock through the end of the year, sometimes almost regardless of whether Tilray hits $178 million this quarter or not. Fund positioning can be a powerful force on its own.
A great reminder that the market has many moving parts. Fascinating setup for Tilray.